Welcome back to Control the Freak, where we talk about all things control freak related, whether you're a controlling person who wants help to understand the things you do and how to stop it, or you live with or know somebody else who lives with a controlling person, and you want help to understand either how to navigate that behaviour or when and how to extract yourself from it. Hopefully you'll find all the answers here. My name's Sean Johnson, and I'm going to walk you through all of the above. I did an episode a little while back about good control, and I gave you 3 examples. I gave you work, law, and children. 3 areas where we need control for things to work properly, but it's got to be the right kind of control. It can get out of hand very, very quickly. And I was reminded of a story recently. Now, just before I wrote this episode, I spoke to a couple of people, and I asked them what a controlling boss meant to them. What's that phrase mean, controlling boss? And they just said things like inflexible or micromanaging. None of them gave the example of the kind of controlling boss that I used to be, the kind that's on everybody's case all the time, that's aggressive, demanding. I used to tell people off for things they hadn't even done yet. I was very overbearing, awful boss. But I've managed to work my way through that now. And hopefully, if you ask my team, they'd agree with that. Every now and again, there's still people who remember the old me I don't interact with very often. When I do interact with them, they approach me as if I'm still that guy. And I guess I'm going to carry that for years now because there's plenty of people I've upset and I've got a little bit of work to do. But also remember, as I said before, there's going to be some people who have their own control issues who were probably the way they were with me, and we probably fell out because there was a control issue on both sides. But that's by the by. All I can do is do my best to kind of undo that reputation, I suppose, and time will tell, won't it? But going back to this story, I was told a story years ago, and I forgot all about this, by a friend that used to work in a huge company, massive office up in the city. And she told me a story about a lady at her place who had manipulated and brought chaos to a certain part of that office on her way up the ladder. And she kind of told me this story as it was reaching its zenith, as the damage was already done. So she remembers this lady, and she said for the first couple of weeks she was there, nobody knew who she was, but she carried herself in a way that she was supposed to be there. Everybody thought that this was a new manager. The way she dressed, the way she she knew where she was going around the office. She had a very hawkish look about her, very, very confident, very chatty with people. And as I say, most people at that point didn't know who she was. Turns out she was just a filing clerk to start with. And she was just filing, and she was making sure there was pastries and biscuits and tea ready in meetings and things like that. That's not to say jobs like that aren't important, but they thought that this lady was way above that. Now, the directors of this company weren't exactly elitist, even though this company brought in millions every year, huge company with an office of hundreds of people. They weren't exactly elitist, and they used to meet in a cafe down the road where they could kind of chew the fat and talk over business issues away from prying ears and just in a relaxed atmosphere. This lady turns up one day at this cafe and introduces herself, and she says she's working in X department. Now, you can imagine a huge company like that, they're not going to know everybody that works for them. So she's just offered that she's working in X department. She asks if she can join them, and as I say, they're not exactly elitist, so they say, yeah, sit down. And she asks lots of questions, and she's very enthusiastic, and she has some opinions, some things to offer about where she used to work before that might improve things in her little area in the office. And they listen to her. And it goes so well that she starts turning up every week to these directors' lunches in this little cafe. A few months go by, and she's kind of made a bit of an impression, and a supervisory role comes up in one of these little teams. Now, there's a team of around 60 people, and there's like 5 or 6 supervisors with sort of 10 people each. And one of the supervisory roles comes up for these teams. And they offer it to her. Apparently, by this point, they've worked out that she's not exactly high up. She's just working there. But she's made a great impression, so they give her this supervisory role. And when she takes on this role, she carries on pretty much as she has in the past. She's very efficient. She looks like she's supposed to be doing the job. And she makes a point of talking to all of the other supervisors all of the time. She seems to spend more time out of her department talking to the other supervisors than she does managing the team. But she's quite gregarious, she's quite outgoing, so she makes lots of friends. And even the team who are underneath her kind of put up with this. They kind of like her, so they tolerate it to some degree. And they're all pretty good at the job anyway. They don't really need micromanaging, so things just go along as normal. She starts talking to these other supervisors, and there's one or two of them who aren't exactly confident in their role. And we all know supervisors or managers like this who have been kind of bumped up the ladder, and they're not necessarily management material. They were very good at what they did beforehand, which made people think that they should move up. But actually, when it comes to managing people, that's not their forte. It doesn't mean they're not good at the other stuff. It just means that they're not great at managing people. So this lady comes along and she's got all kinds of great ideas and suggestions, and she's a good listener. She listens to their problems and she starts to suggest ways they could handle it. Now, this company kind of had an unwritten rule book about how supervisors would manage their teams. And it was kind of agreed to keep things fair. You know, we won't let 3 or 4 people take a week off at once. We make sure everybody's on time, things like that. And it was to keep things fair across the team so that nobody could point to another supervisor's team and say, well, this isn't fair because they get to do that. And this has been agreed for years. They've all been doing it. But this lady's suggestions kind of undermine that. But she's got this backup of saying, well, I used to do this at my old company that was a huge company. We made lots of changes and everybody was much happier. So some of these weaker supervisors kind of go along with it. Things start to get a little bit chaotic. There's a few kind of unwritten rules being broken. But also, this lady never seems to be doing what she's supposed to be doing. She's either taking late lunches at the director's cafe meeting, or she's talking to other supervisors all the time. Now, there's 2 supervisors who are starting to get a bit rattled by this because all they can see is her doing things she's not supposed to be doing, but getting lots of plaudits for it, getting lots of praise. It starts to rattle them a little bit. They've been there for years. Now, they didn't necessarily have ambitions to move up the chain, but they took their job very, very seriously. So these 2 start to talk to each other. And it's one of those situations where you're reinforcing each other's problems. You're telling each other there's a problem, and the other one's going, yeah, that's right. Oh, and then she did this. And they're starting to make the problem worse in their own minds. A few months pass, and this lady gets bumped up again. She's now in a management position, and she's now in charge of all of these supervisors. And these disgruntled supervisors are starting to think, well, we know why that's happened. It's because you spend every lunch, late lunches, with the directors. There's no wonder you've got this position. You don't actually deserve it. And it makes them even worse than they were before. They get even more annoyed at her. They start taking note of things that she's not doing. Now, she's developed a saying that she becomes known for, and it's leave it with me. Whenever somebody goes to her and tells her a problem, or even if they don't and she just hears a problem, she sticks her nose in and goes, I'll sort that, leave it with me. And they even start calling her leave it with me. They've had enough, these 2 supervisors. They're taking notes and they're going, right, there's lots of stuff she's not doing. She's not doing her job. We're going to go to the directors. So they go to the directors and they tell them their concerns. It doesn't go very well because the directors say, well, we know her. We know she's very good at her job. And actually, we've spoken to her teams and a couple of her supervisors, and they sing nothing but praises about this woman. And actually, she's told us that she's tried to make changes and tried to progress the company and progress the department. And it's you guys that have been causing the problem. Basically, they get a slapped arse and told, get on with your job, wind your neck in. It doesn't go well at all for these 2 guys. As time goes on, she's causing more and more problems. Now she's a manager, she starts being given projects to complete. She's going back to these other supervisors that are on her side and delegating little bits of these projects to them. Of course, they're very happy to help her because when the directors have walked around, they've never been so friendly. They've never been so interested in their job. So when she goes and she says, "Can you just do this little bit for me? And don't worry, you can come in late tomorrow if you just do this bit for me, or you can take a late lunch, or do you know what? Take the afternoon off. I've booked an office out for you. Just go and do this bit for me," which enrages these other two supervisors. There's no happy ending to this story, unfortunately. Things get so bad and so chaotic for these two supervisors looking across the office and watching things being done completely against the rules that they've all agreed to years ago. And they handle it two different ways. One of them starts doing that thing that people who feel they've lost control do and start saying, "Well, I don't care anymore." They start letting their staff come in late. They start taking late lunches. They start dropping a little bit in quality and not necessarily finishing projects on time. It's a little bit of a protest for them. And all the time they're saying, "I just don't care anymore." But it's obvious they really do. Everybody can see they really care. There's always a little edge to that "I don't care." There's a bit of a growl to it. There's a bit of bared teeth. The other supervisor is much more vocal. They're making sure that everybody knows how unhappy they are. And they're telling people what's going on with this woman and how she's got her job. And there's even a suggestion that she's possibly knocking off one of the directors. Very, very vocal about it. Eventually, the guy who's making all the noise tries again with the directors and actually gets given a final warning. The other supervisor ends up getting signed off sick with mental health issues, and I think they were off for 8 months. I think she told me it might have been a year, but they were off for a very long time with a bit of a mental breakdown because they couldn't handle the control being taken away from them like that. Meanwhile, this lady just carries on. I think the company might have folded sometime around 2008, the subprime mortgage thing, and the company ended up folding. But up until that point, she was rocketing to the top. Now, the guy that was making all the fuss, stamping their feet, reminds me a lot of me. There was a period where I had a manager years ago now, and this guy, to me, as far as I was concerned, was awful at his job. I thought he was lazy. I thought he spent too much time socialising. I thought he was manipulative. I thought he was inappropriate with some members of staff. I took my job very, very seriously, and he was my manager, as I say. So to me, it was making my life difficult. I was rude to this guy. There was one time he tried to offer me his hand to wish me Merry Christmas, and I just looked at him and went, "I'm not shaking your hand." I never told him why I was annoyed. I just made it really clear that I was annoyed with him. And I told everybody that would listen how bad this guy was. Eventually, I went to the directors about him because I'd heard some stories. And the first director I went to just kind of brushed me off. So I thought, I'll try another director. So I went to another director, pretty much the same thing. And then I eventually went to a third director and I was given a slapped arse. I was pretty much told, "You're the problem." Because the problem is, this wasn't the first guy I'd done this with. I'd complained about so many people not doing their job properly. Remember, I said that as far as I was concerned, my priorities were the only ones that mattered, and everybody else was crap at their job unless they were close to me. I'd done this for years. So there I am, this guy that's done that for all this time, doing it again as far as they're concerned. And they were correct. If I'm absolutely honest with you, they were absolutely correct. Because I had that attitude about anybody who wasn't doing things the way I thought they should be done. I would just turn on people. I could be somebody's friend and then see them not doing the job properly as far as I was concerned and just go off them and just wouldn't talk to them or I'd be rude to them. So when the director told me the problem's you, in hindsight, they were correct. If you're going through this situation at work and you've got a boss who you think isn't doing their job properly, or they're being manipulative, or they're just causing chaos around the place and you're having a similar problem. My advice to you is to look at the demand disproportionate benefit escalation model. Now, I'd escalated, there's no doubt about that. The fact that I was really vocal and I was angry, I was taking this home with me every night and I couldn't sleep because I was so annoyed about this guy. I'd escalated. You've got to look at how you feel and whether or not it would be disproportionately beneficial to you that things either changed to your benefit or had never changed at all. If you were happy the way things were and now you're unhappy, well, then it's disproportionately beneficial to you, isn't it? And if you escalate and you start making a noise like I do, and you start going to directors like I did, and like those other supervisors did, then you're escalating. And there's a bit of proof there that it's personal to you. So therefore, it's disproportionately beneficial to you. So therefore, there was a demand in the first place. Now, that's not to say that if somebody's really doing damage to the company or the department, and they're not doing their job properly, and it's really affecting everybody else, that you can't say something about it. Because all companies have facilities for doing this. They have whistleblower policies, for instance. And if it's really doing damage, you should absolutely say something about it. The point I'm making is questioning your motivation. It's questioning whether or not it's really important. If it is really important, you must say something because it's the only way that things are going to change. You've just got to ask yourself what that change is really about. Now, look, we're all going to get this, and I still get this every now and again now, where I'll see someone who's been promoted into a position who I think doesn't deserve it, but I don't get upset anymore. The minute I start to feel upset, I question that motivation, I question that reaction. And it always comes back to the fact that I don't like it. So it's disproportionately beneficial to me if things either change or go back to the way they were. And I stop myself in my tracks at that point. I might still feel a bit annoyed about it, and I might still talk to people who feel a bit annoyed about it as well. But I never let it get to me like I used to before. Thing is, with this guy, this manager of mine, once I started questioning the disproportionate benefit and the escalation, and I decided to relax with him, I could look at things completely differently. Because the fact was, he was fairly popular amongst his staff. He was gregarious, he was outgoing, he was kind of like that woman. He made friends. It was only really me that escalated to the point that I did. Other people didn't think he was very good either, but they liked him, so it didn't matter. Once I relaxed, I could have a laugh with this guy. He was funny. He was really funny. He was all the things I thought he was about his job, but on a personal level, he was all right. And once I could realize that it was only the way I was looking at things that was the problem, things got a lot better. The thing to remember is we're all going to be dust one day. And work should never take an emotional toll on you. It shouldn't go home with you like it did for me. Like I went home and I was angry and I couldn't sleep. And I turned up to work every day angry, ready to take it out on this guy. Work should never do that to you, no matter how much you enjoy your job. I heard a story recently. It was the best way that I've heard somebody handle it. There was somebody who was working somewhere who had somebody who was behaving like this lady who kind of manipulated themselves into a position but wasn't really cut out for the job at all, but was using everybody around them to get things done and then claim it as her work. And this person just finished their project to the best of their ability and then left, went somewhere else. It's perfect, isn't it? If you can do that, not everybody can do that, obviously. Sometimes you're kind of stuck where you are working. So in that situation, just do your job the best you can and don't worry about that person. If they're that bad, they're going to get found out. And even if they don't, when you clock off, leave it at work. Don't take it home with you. Question your motivation. Question whether or not it's disproportionately beneficial to you that things change. And realize that some other people might not feel the same way as you. And if you're escalating and you're getting emotional and you're angry about it, then it's definitely about you. There's a subtle demand there. It doesn't make you a control freak as such, but there's a controlling issue there that you need to address. Work is work, and there's far more important things in life than work. Question your motivation, and you should be able to work your way through the problem. If you're having any problems like this and you've got some details, you want to either drop them in the comments or drop them to these email address and Instagram or whatever that comes up down there. I'll be happy to walk you through it and see if we can come up with a solution to help you deal with it. But really, the solution is you and your perspective. Going back to these email addresses again, I'm either control freak. Love to hear from people. So if you could drop that in there, be good. In the meantime, I'll leave you with the usual. Control the freak, not other people. I'll see you next time. Behave.